What's the word? What's the word?
And of course, you know, it wouldn't be that type of day if we didn't have another episode of the Bees of Boxing. On this, the day of our Lord, who knows, but it'll be the day before tomorrow. And it wouldn't be anything other than exciting if we didn't break in and see Steve Swift running with scissors, or at least trying to groom up some facial hair before we get started here. You have the best mustache, well, most definitely on this show, but I would say in the world of boxing and boxing media and just all around cool look. How do you
Well,
do it, Steve?
I go to a barber who I pay copious amounts of money to,
Okay.
and I have a the hot and cold towel treatment. That's another matter entirely. You pay extra for that, but I
Does
do all of that to get the pores open, dear.
does your barber have a bar in it?
No, a coffee machine, and that's about all. But
Mine
um,
mine has a
but
full
he
bar.
does he does he does put the unguents on the beard, so that's very
Okay.
nice.
All right. All right.
Um, I enjoy
Are
it.
you a beard oil kind of guy?
Oh yes. Oh, I'm always oiled up. You know that. We've talked about that in the past. Remember?
Flip that statement right there. Steve Swift is always oiled up. Ladies and gentlemen, we got ourselves a show. All right. So we watched some boxing, Steve. I mean, and we did. Um, I hate to say it because it was what is being referred to as crossover boxing, but we know what it is. It started off as influencer boxing, and it continues to be that until yesterday or this past weekend, depending on when you're listening and or watching this. Misfits Boxing has really kind of upped their game. I'm going to say this out loud. They have definitely upped their game. The production was not that much better. You know what I mean? It is what it is, and that'll come with time, I think. But the fact that there was less YouTubers against YouTubers, and there was more actual boxers involved with this, makes me believe that maybe Misfits Boxing has turned a corner. Now, what do you think about that, first of all? And then I have a follow-up question for you.
Well, I mean, they had some established boxers
Mhm.
ringside, didn't they? We'll talk in a minute about this, I think, because I understand what you're saying, but there is no way Misfits boxing or any influencer boxing will continue without that high profile meet in the ring. Now, MVP has it easier because Jake Paul is his own draw. KSI is a draw, but I think it seems that he needs that high profile meet. Now, at the weekend, I'm sure you want to talk about this. We did have a possibility of some very high profile meet who might want to take a fight.
Well, I mean, he certainly needs the money. There's no doubt about it. We're talking about your good friend, obviously, your compadre, your partner in crime, your Mr. Alibi, Mr. Carl Froch. Obviously, the man himself shows up and then says, "Hey, I'm on camera, and now I'm gonna run away." What a weird man he is. At least shout out Tony Bellew, who came out there on stage and said, "Listen, I don't necessarily agree. I'm paraphrasing here. I don't necessarily agree with all of this type of boxing that's going on under the guise of actual boxing, but there are some things here. There are some people here, and this is an event, and therefore I'm here because it's an event, and it's a huge event." But here's my question that I have for you. When we talk about, because obviously the comparison is always going to be there between KSI and Jake Paul. And the common denominator is that at some point or another, I'm sure that both of those men are, in a weird kind of way, Eskimo brothers. I guarantee you that both of them at some point in their lives have shared a mattress, sleeping or otherwise, with Logan Paul. I'm sure that this has happened. So therefore, there's a weird tie with them. Have completely different companies, a lot of similarities in the companies. And I want to get into with you a little bit. I want to talk about the similarities and the differences between MVP, Misfit Boxing, because the similarities are a lot more than you would think. When you think about who owns Misfits Boxing, it's KSI, it's his songwriter, and it's a couple of guys that I'm sure you're very familiar with over there in England, in Kale and Nice Sauerland, who own Wasserman Boxing, or run Wasserman Boxing, I should say. Tell me from that side of the pond and everybody else out here, what's the deal with Wasserman Boxing?
Well, I mean, the thing is that KSI is the front man, and you wouldn't know really unless you delved in, as we do, that anybody else was involved. You wouldn't really know that. So it's a silent situation. It's KSI's promotion. He's there discussing and commentating and doing the when anybody throws any kind of punch with intent, he's screaming, "Oh my god!" I mean, it's just a punch, mate. It's just a punch. So he really controls everything. And um, as we are talking about the Cobra, about Mr. Froch, what he did do was, to be fair to him, because I'm going to be not unfair, but I'm not going to be nice to him in a bit. But the thing is that he did say afterwards in an interview with somebody else where he just talked about himself more or less, because he was called out. He did say, "I was here, the production was good, and what KSI does is he brings a lot of younger people in." Now, that's something that's invaluable for boxing, isn't it? And that's one of the reasons why then this, in a way, I suppose legitimate boxing is saying, okay, let's have a look at this and see if it gets any better and if we can make a crossover like Jake Paul is doing, to say, let's try and cross over this. Let's have a UBO where I can be part of it, perhaps, and let's have that crossover. So it is KSI's promotion as far as the Brits feel. I could be wrong, but you don't hear of anybody else but KSI when you talk about Misfits Boxing.
Well, and didn't doesn't Wasserman have a deal? Didn't they have a deal, or they have something in the works possibly to maybe take over a spot on Sky Sport now that Boxer is gone from there?
Well, I
I
mean, it
would
wouldn't
think they
surprise
should.
me at all. Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me in any way, shape, or form.
Mhm.
But as far as influencer boxing goes, from this side of the pond, you've got either KSI or you've got Jake Paul. That's basically it. There's nothing else. It's just those two. I could be wrong and I could be missing something, but I think it's just those two. They really are. I don't think they're in competition. They seem to be, micturating in the same pond, but they do seem to be helping each other out to a certain extent.
And you saw that KSI and Misfits now has miraculously, after one fight, they have an MMA division. And the head of your division, the top of your division, is probably the most volatile thing in all of MMA in one Dylan Dennis. So you're going to get eyeballs. You're going to get buzz clips. You're going to get all of that stuff, especially you've got Darren Till. It's weird that your boxing promotion is topped by an MMA guy and another MMA guy now, and then even go one step deeper, because in your co-main for boxing was, your YouTuber, your social media guy, Salt Poppy, against an MMA guy, and who won? The MMA guy. So I mean, at the end of the day, what I think we're showing is that experienced fighters, it really kind of dictate combat sports. There's no doubt about it. But do I want to see a fight now between Darren Till and, I don't know, Jake Paul? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I do. I want to see Jake Paul fight everybody. Who are we kidding now?
Yes. Now the great thing about this is that the Dylan Dennis thing, I
Mm.
missed that there was an MMA. I assumed that he was in a boxing fight. And I'll tell you why I assumed this is because I've been rather consumed, which is why I assumed that I've been consumed with the really good DAZN because they've gone on board with this big style. The DAZN, look at Darren Till and look at Luke Rockhold and the difference in their lives. Really nicely done, actually. Ahead of the fight. So I was a bit consumed by that. And that really kind of sold the fight to me. I mean, it wasn't a good fight, Tidster. It wasn't a good fight, but it was entertaining.
I mean, it was exactly what I thought it was going to be. As soon as you found out it was an MMA fight, it was like, well, yeah, that's his bread and butter. But I think the thing was for them was more because Dylan Dennis has been trying to get fights and they've been trying to do this for quite some time with that organization. Finally, they were like, listen, we got to get our return on all of this. How are we going to do that? And they finally did that. I want to talk very quickly about some of the similarities, though, between the Jake Paul and the KSI thing, because that's really the fight that everybody's been calling for. And it seems like KSI, as much as it's his promotion, he doesn't fight nearly as much as the way Jake Paul does. Jake Paul says, this is my promotion, but I'm also the Floyd Mayweather of my promotion. Even calling this stuff MVP and then, the MTM, the money or TMT, kind of weird. Anyways, so everybody wanted this fight between KSI and Jake Paul because the similarities in their careers is astounding. If you do the research on this, if you do the journalistic research on this, you'll see that like they were both doing music at the same time. They were both trying to make it as musicians. They both started in the boxing stuff at the same time. Jake Paul made his debut fighting against KSI's little brother, right? When his older brother was fighting KSI. There's also the fact that his older brother has a business tie, a very large one with Prime and Lunch Lee's or whatever they're called, mostly Prime, right, with each other. So you don't want to really cross over that business end of things. I think that Jake Paul has gone and done the most amazing thing that you can do when starting MVP, and that was get the business partner that he did. Because the business partner that he has a lot more deeper ties. Think about this for a second, Steve. Okay. It's 2021, and he starts up this business with Nikisa Badarian. Nikisa Badarian used to be the former CFO and CSO, Chief Strategy Officer, right, of a little company called the UFC. Also happens to be one of the guys who started the Fertitta, the Capital Group, right? So there's your ties right there with the UFC. As much as Dana hates it, Jake Paul has a tie to his best friend and the guy that got him started in MMA as well. So when you see that this is what he's done there, and now this guy was also, but Aaron was also the guy who is responsible for the contracts for Conor McGregor, Ronda Rousey, the most flamboyant characters that ever came into the UFC. So if you think that direction and that guidance isn't being given to Jake Paul as well in the way that Jake is conducting his career, I would say you're a liar because that's exactly what's happening here. This furthers my belief of what I say that you're going to see Jake at that table with this new UBO and with Dana and with Turkey Al-Sheikh because the tie's already there that people aren't even talking about. The business partner of MVP has Dana and those guys on speed dial. I'm telling you. So there's no doubt about it that that's going to happen. And I think that's one of the reasons you're seeing Jake not even fall for the bait. Like he's not even taking the bait anymore. He's not even in the discussions with talking about KSI and Misfits Boxing. He's separated himself completely. I think Misfits Boxing has seen this, and now they're like, well, we've got to figure this out on our own now. We've got to go in a direction, and that's why they're trying to tie in the MMA stuff. There's a market out there for this because they're drawing huge numbers. And if you think that Darren Till can't talk himself into a fight, I mean, Jesus, Murphy, when you sit there at a press conference and you look across at your opponent and you flat out say, you're a crackhead. I mean, you're looking for a real fight.
Yes, and it just seems from where I'm sitting that KSI Misfits Boxing is British and it doesn't go anywhere else. For me, it doesn't seem as though it goes across the Atlantic, whereas it's different for MVP. They can go anywhere, particularly with the women's division and all the stuff that they do there. Misfits Boxing just seems to be a bit of a roll up kind of circus, whereas with the attempts that Jake Paul, and good attempts he's made to go a little bit legitimate, that really has worked, and it does seem like a more, I'm going to say, serious promotion, whereas Misfit seems like an event promotion, not a boxing promotion. It seems like, let's have an event.
Okay, let me ask you this. Would it be that way? Do you think it would be that way if there was no involvement with Netflix and Mike Tyson? Take that out of the equation for Jake Paul. Is he at the level that he's at because of that? You know what I'm saying? What do you think?
Yeah, partially, but I think the women's promotion that he does makes him something else. I mean, he's a player coach, isn't he? That's a different thing entirely. We discussed this. He's a promoter like no other, and KSI is kind of has drawn back in a way to say, look, I'm the face of this, but I won't fight because actually no one's calling him out. It's not, I mean, Darren Till's not knocking on his door and saying, I want the guy who promotes, I want him. He's saying, I want Carl Froch. And I think that he's kind of pulled back, whereas Jake Paul's work with women's boxing really adds something to him. It really makes him seem he's cornered the market in that, and other people have been sleeping on it and saying, I'm not really going to get involved too much in that. Cornered the market in that to a certain extent, and it really adds something serious to him.
It's interesting. So what you're saying, Steve, is that the top of MVP, like their top fighters, should really fight the top fighters of Misfits Boxing and see who is the grand champion of them all. Are you trying to say that Amanda Serrano should fight Darren Till? Is that what you're calling for right now, Steve Swift?
I wasn't calling for it, but now you're saying it. I'm saying that's absolutely what should happen. The brawl to end it all. However, I see, I'd buy a ticket all day for that. The thing is, because I think that Amanda Serrano could actually trash talk Darren Till equally. I mean, Darren Till, I saw the head-to-head with Darren Till and Luke Rockhold, and Luke Rockhold was sort of saying, Darren Till was dominating that with that lovely accent. And he was saying, how can you be fighting with the best in the world when I've been fighting with the best in the world in my sparring? Well, I am. Well, you're not, because I am. So how can you be? Well, I am. So it just looked foolish. But I think that fight would be superb. But I don't think that MVP, and I don't think that Jake Paul is. I don't think KSI is now on his radar. I don't think that Misfits is on his radar. They are miles apart, and I don't just mean geographically. I don't think it's there for Misfits is a separate thing. I think they're in a box, and I don't think they can get over the Atlantic.
And I think that a lot of that has to do. We've said it before because the table's being built, and Jake knows that he's got a seat at that table. So he's on to much bigger things. Had that not been the case, had that not been proven that Jake could pull something off like he did with the Mike Tyson and the Netflix deal, Had that been proven that he could not do that, he would not have this seat at the table. But he has this seat at the table. And who else ended up with a job right around the same time that MVP happened to start? Who else ended up with a job with TKO at that time? His brother. It's when his brother started with the WWE. So everybody got a job out of this thing. And it's all done through TKO, Dana, the Fertitas. This is the game. There's the game right there. That's what's being changed. And people aren't talking about all the other little stuff that ties in with it to make this game happen a couple of years in advance. The Fertitas are the smartest people in the game. They're the smartest players out there. This is great.
Yes, and smart because they don't make themselves available. So you don't know. So they're not there, which is really important.
Yeah.
But them and Jake Paul, we're picking up Jake Paul again because what we're saying is you diversify your portfolio.
Mhm.
If you're a day trader or if you're in stocks and shares, if you're on Canary Wharf or if you're in the stock exchange, if you're in Wall Street, you diversify your portfolio. You do not just buy risky stocks. You buy BP. You buy Coca-Cola. You get those stocks and you diversify, and that's what he's doing. So he is saying, I've got this women's division here. That's quite tasty, yeah. However, I bought Mike Tyson on. My God, that's really tasty. Oh, and by the way, I can do this too. There's the WWE because my brother's in there. Okay, he's got it covered. I mean, chess and checkers is absolutely right, and I'm bigging him up again. But he's doing it without. We're the only ones calling. We're the only ones calling it out, Tidster.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's the business. That's the business of boxing. And that's what we talk about here. We talk about the bees of boxing, and he's got that end covered. And you're going to see a lot of stuff coming out in the near future that you're going to say, oh, I remember hearing rumblings about this happening weeks and months ago on this certain little show that I should have probably paid more attention to. But now, the boxing of boxing. Let's get back to this whole thing with your buddy Carl. So it would seem that your buddy Carl um, doesn't want to fight Darren Till, or does he want to fight Darren Till? Because I mean, he did a pretty good Tom and Jerry impersonation immediately after that with scurrying away. What's up with Carl? Come on, you got the call. Carl called you right away and was like, Steve, I don't know what to do. I mean, these guys are on me and they want me to take this fight. What do you think I should do? And you said,
He said to me, Steve, mate, he called me a shithouse. And I said, well, you'll be called a shithouse a lot more unless you take that fight. Unfortunately, you now have to take the fight. Because the only other thing he can do, I'll tell you the way out of it in a minute.
okay.
But he's 48. He kept his powder dry after the fight. He may have scurried away, but he kept his powder dry because he wanted to do a YouTube bit, which he did. And I watched it and I podcasted about this. He starts by saying, I knocked someone out in front of 80,000 people. It was 11 years ago. Later on, he'll say, I have nothing to prove. I'm a 4-time world champion or something of that nature. But it's bothered him, and he doesn't like to be called a shithouse. And he said he doesn't want to get back in the ring because he was offered that at the time when he retired, and he doesn't have the desire to do that. But he's gym ready. That's different to being ring ready. We know that. Mm-hmm. But if he doesn't accept that, and if Darren Till, and he's the kind of character who will keep pushing that button, you don't want to forget about it. Yeah. If he doesn't accept that fight, he will be called a shithouse. And he's got such an ego, he will have to accept it. As he said, it's a Bunsen burner. It's good money. It's buns. It would be a good money. I'll tell you the only way he can get out of that is to offer a better fight, which would be to fight George Groves. That's the only way he could do it.
On a Misfits card, or do you save that for your Legends League that's going to end up over with TKO Boxing?
He promotes it himself, and it could be on that, but he doesn't do it on a Misfits card. He says you can have that and them. So I'm not doing that. I'll promote that myself or with somebody else. That's the only way he can get out of it because that's a bigger fight.
Wow. Wow, that's a horrible thing when you think about the fact that you're thinking about Carl Froch's best fight is just a rematch with Groves. I mean, and we're never going to get that. The only way you're going to get that fight again is if you watch it and fast forward after it happens. That's the upsetting part. Here's the question though: when you think about this and you talk about the people that showed up to Misfit Boxing, you know what I mean? Like Connor Benn showed up there. You know, Tony Bellew was there. Carl Froch was there. Like real boxers are showing up at this thing. How long is it? How long is it before this is where Tyson Fury's next fight is?
I
Mm,
don't think it's Tyson Fury. I don't think it's someone like that. And I think that Froch or Bellew, I'm not going to put Conor Benn in there because he's still active, but I
mhm,
don't think that Bellew and Froch are fighting on a Misfits card. I think they're thinking they need a bigger area. I mean, I don't want to upset him because he knows where I live, but Carl Froch and the George Groves thing is a British fight. It's not
mhm.
a correct me if I'm wrong. It's not really a hugely international fight. It's a
No.
British fight, which is why I'm so excited about it because I'm British. So it's that and Bellew in a way British. It's got that British appeal, but I think they'd want something bigger. I think they'd want to be on the undercard of an AJ fight, something like
Yeah, I could see something like
that.
that happening. Um,
So what we've had, and we're looking to fight Tyson Fury now. Yeah, funnily enough. And if that happens, then the undercard of that could be Carl Froch versus someone, but he'd want it on that kind of card.
Interesting. I wonder then what is next for a Darren Till? What is next for a Misfits boxing like that? Then if you have to think to yourself, it's probably going to end up being somebody like, I don't know. Do we see Darren Till against Tommy Fury? Is this what gets Tommy Fury back into a ring? I think you're going to be pretty hard pressed if you're Misfits Boxing to find somebody to fight Darren Till, because nobody wants to be called a shithouse, or a minge, or any of these other weird ass, colloquialisms that you guys think are insults to people over there. I mean, oh, you called me a shithouse. You're a bathroom. Okay. Well, listen. I mean, could think of a lot worse things that you could call somebody in the realm of talking up a game. you know.
Shithouse is great. I the thing about Till is that he's not, but bear with me on this. He's the real deal. He's not, of course, he's not, but he's the real deal because he's got. He talks a really good game.
Mhm.
His little bit with DAZN that he did with let's go and see Luke in his beach house residence, and let's see Darren Till in his apartment cleaning
Mhm.
up his cat piss, and let's have him talking. And he's got a really good a lovely personality, but he's a great trash talker. And in the ring, he's got very little, but he does have that big overhand left. So it's kind of I don't need to worry too much about the chess match of boxing because all I'm looking for is that big shot. So that's quite exciting for fans who aren't real followers of boxing. Plus, he's got that trash talk. He is the real deal in that respect. Tommy Fury is um, an ideal match for him. I don't think because he's not at the level where he can. I can't think of anybody he could fight who's a legitimate boxer. Although you might, but I mean, Tommy Fury, who's not a legitimate boxer in my view, someone who says, I had this hand issue and I was upset because I got terrible mental issues because I couldn't box. Well, you're all right now, and you pulled out the Darren Till fight, didn't you? So maybe this is well, I thought you were going to kick me, so I pulled out of that fight. So maybe this is now you were a shit house, and now you're not a shit house because you're going to fight me. Could be that.
So if we're talking British fight, and it is a British promotion, like we're saying, and you have people that run Wasserman Boxing, I mean, and it's a very popular name right now. Maybe Darren Till versus Harlem Eubank is a thing.
I mean, it's
Exactly.
extraordinary. I
Think
mean,
about that for a friggin' second.
that is like Jake Paul versus Javante Davis, isn't it? I mean, that
Mhm,
is a kind of size mismatch
mhm,
and all of that. And it is kind of, but with Darren Till, it's I'm the gorilla
mhm.
and you're the anteater or you're the opossum or something like that. So I mean, it is a basic size and strength versus speed and
Right.
movement, isn't it? And Harlem Eubank has got that mouth.
Yeah.
So they would both get into it. That's an interesting one. Um, the thing is, KSI does surprisingly now, and I was shocked, and I don't know if he was, but I'd be surprised if he wasn't. Has now after that event a wealth of possibilities. So he could do that. He does now need to go legitimate in some respect because he's following MVP's lead.
Mhm.
Clearly is. He's not at their level, or Misfits is not at their level, and so he needs to go legitimate. Um, I mean, Harlem Eubank or someone of that nature, or one of the Eubanks might be someone that could do that if the Canelo fight is not on the possibility.
Well, we're a couple of weeks away from that fight happening. And, I want to get into more of that next week. Before we do go, I want to talk because obviously Misfits Boxing is on a big high. They've had a fantastic outing. They got hella exposure. And Darren Till is probably the happiest man in the world, next to maybe one other boxer out there. Is there is there a man living a better life right now than one Alexander Usyk? Now, the reason I bring this up to you, Steve, is because we know now that Alexander Usyk has said to the WBO and everybody else, "I'm not fighting. I have a back injury. I'm not going to take a fight anytime soon," because they want him to fight Joseph Parker, if I'm not mistaken, right? And so then a video comes out of Usyk at a wedding, at a party, dancing, doing his thing. That's okay. Listen, he's white guy dancing. Let's face facts right now. He is very white guy dancing, which is like there's not a whole lot of movement from the waist down. It's all just kind of like, you're doing your thing. It's very, very much a real thing. And we've all been to the point, where we've been at a party and you've thrown out some grooves after having a couple of, shots. And this could be nothing more than that because now the WBO wants him to submit a doctor's. We need a doctor's note. We need a note from your doctor that says you aren't able to fight, but you're okay to go to a party and dance after a few drinks. Are they the stupidest organization in the world of boxing right now, or what?
I love Alexander Usyk. I mean, he's taking the piss, maybe, and if he is, he's doing it beautifully. I mean, I wasn't reminded of John Travolta on the lit up dance floor on Saturday Night Fever. It wasn't like that, but I mean, he didn't look like he had a bad back. And what I was particularly interested in was the report. It might not be correct. What he is, we're no doctors, but we think he looked all right. So as well as that, it appears he said, "I've got an injury. Can I have an extra month?" And the WBO's gone, "Yeah, go on," without saying what would that injury be. Is it an ingrowing toenail, or have you got to have back surgery? Just gone, okay, yeah, fine. But the thing is, they can't be too noisy because
Mm-mm.
what Usyk will do is just unclip that belt and say, "Go and F yourselves. I've done it before," and he's got nothing to prove. They're all around his waist and they're very heavy at the moment. He might have one more fight, and that will be against Tyson Fury But I don't want that fight. But it might be, and he doesn't need any belts for that. So you've got to be quite quiet, because if you upset him, he might drop the belt.
Well, here's another thing. We talk about that because he doesn't need a belt for that, because that's exactly right. And are we at the point? Are we living in an era right now where you don't need a belt to have the biggest fights out there right now? I mean, we talk about what's coming up with, Canelo and Crawford, and whether or not like Crawford can win this. Let's say Crawford does win this fight. And is he going to stay at super middleweight and defend this belt, or is he going to move back down? And if that's the case, that frees up Canelo for a lot of these fights that you could have with him without a belt involved. The biggest fights out there at heavyweight would be Tyson Fury and Alexander Usyk, as far as the money goes, I think, you know. But you don't want to have a belt involved with anything where Tyson Fury is involved right now, because you don't know if he's going to retire in the car again. This is what he does. So I think that we're the framework for your idea for this league is coming into play even more and more every single week, Steve. It's happening.
It is, because we said months ago that this influencer boxing would affect legitimate boxing, and it has. So now you've got, let's have an enormous event. We don't, sod the belts. We need an enormous event. And I mean, it's that fantasy booking, isn't it? And it's, if you could have Usyk and Fury, well, you can't, because Fury's retired and he can't get a belt. We can't parachute him in. But what if you could? Oh, they're fighting. That's worth my money. So the belts don't. We always know this has been about Pretty Green, and I'm wearing a Pretty Green shirt right now. We know that, and the thing is that because it's about Pretty Green, the belts have always been sort of linked to Pretty Green, but it's always been, oh well, that's the legitimate stuff. But actually now money is legitimate in boxing now. So yeah, we're coming to a point where you don't need the belts, and when you get people like Manny Pacquiao parachuted in to fight for a belt that then becomes, in my view, absolutely worthless, then you think, well, you know what? The money. It's the money, and it always has been, but at least now boxing is admitting it.
But that happens to be the business of things in a lot of sports that has a crossover with entertainment. It absolutely does, because we see it in professional wrestling all of the time. We saw it for years, where all of a sudden it's WrestleMania again, and we need something to sell this big thing, so we're going to bring back the Undertaker. Shout out to the Undertaker, and thank you for doing it all those years. You know what I mean? But you can only do that for so long. Does that say to you that the state of boxing right now doesn't yet have enough legitimate stars to carry itself, that we're still required to bring back some of these older aging stars that have really no business in a young man's sport anymore?
Yeah, we don't have those business of boxing and boxing stars. We don't have that kind of, I can do it in the ring, but I can also do it on the press conference. We don't have that. And that is why Tyson Fury is so important to boxing, because, there are two things, aren't there? Because the first thing is, you've got Tyson Fury, who talks a really good game and can do it in the boxing ring, or could. And he has less followers on, let's say, Facebook, social media, than someone like Anthony Joshua, who is a clean cut kid who doesn't do the trash talking,
Mhm.
and he's got more followers. So I don't know. I really don't know, but the
Well,
media, the
you
media
know why.
attention.
You absolutely
What's
know
that?
why. You absolutely know why. It's because Tyson Fury looks the way that he does, and Anthony Joshua looks the way that he does. As a society, we want our fighters, we want our gladiators to look like superheroes. We want them to look like that. Tyson Fury has come along and kind of breaking the mold. Even in boxing, we wanted a guy that looked more like Marvin Hagler than looked like Sugar Ray Leonard. That's one thing, you know what I mean? We want that dude, that Mike Tyson physique. You know what I mean? That just worked so well for the heavyweight division when it did. We want that look. And that's why Tyson, because everybody looks Tyson Fury is like, how is this guy even standing on those legs, first of all? Right. And he doesn't look like anybody who could beat his way out of a wet paper bag compared to an Anthony Joshua. But we know the difference. Yeah, I'll throw it back to you one more time. Frank Bruno, perfect example. $1 million body and a 10 cent, ability. That's it. That's it. That's what it comes down to.
You're quite right, actually, and you raise a good point, which I want to follow up, because what Tyson Fury has got is the is the ability to appeal to the general populace. You know, the
Mhm.
Carl Froch comment really struck home with me about the Misfits boxing thing, which was, got a lot of young people here, right? Well, that was the way he said it was. Oh, we don't get that generally in boxing. Tyson Fury, see, Anthony Joshua's appeal is a boxer's appeal. And Tyson Fury's appeal is, I'm just walking around the supermarket, mate, as I did before I became a multimillionaire. As he said, always walk. I've done the same supermarket with my wife and kids. The difference is I'm now a multimillionaire. So that appeals. It's like the WWE. It's always wanted to appeal to a general entertainment package, and it never really has. You know, the stars who go on to do something are ones who have left, or of ones who are bought back when they become popular. I mean, John Cena is a case in point now, and the same thing with boxing. George Foreman, we talked about him a while ago when he sadly passed. He was a man who appealed to the general populace, and that's what Tyson Fury is too. So you've got both of those things. He's not really a boxer's boxer, but he's someone who's invaluable to boxing because he's got brand and name recognition with the person in the street.
And you relate to him because he looks like the guy that you would hang out at your house. He looks like your neighbor. You can relate to that. Basically, I think what you're saying, Steve Swift, is that Tyson Fury is the Ron Jeremy of boxing. Is that what you're telling me right now?
No, I would never say that, particularly considering Ron Jeremy's situation at the moment. So
Uh,
no, I wouldn't. And the thought of that in my mind is something that will haunt me for the rest of my days. So thank you for that, Titster.
well, listen.
No, I'm
Every
not
if
saying that at all. You keep doing this. You keep
yeah,
putting thoughts in my mind, which then stay there and make me have to talk to my therapist about it.
well, listen. Other people have ways of Stockholming. I have my way. Listen, Steve, I want to thank you so much. As always, I love having conversations about boxing and the business of boxing and try to dig a little bit deeper than just watching a couple of guys throw hands at faces because, that's really more exciting. And that's what this is about. And that's the future. That's the future of boxing. And the future is also going to be in things like, seeing reviews about great music, horrible movies. And if there's a place that you can do that, I mean, I'm telling you, it's World Weary Guy 1, and it's our good friend Steve Swift. Please go support, show him the love, and you will not be disappointed because there is a ton of stuff out there that he is reviewing. We try to come up with suggestions for him as well. And what's next? What's next for World Weary Guy 1 reviews?
Well, I'll be taking one of those suggestions. I won't tell you what it is, but I'll be taking one of them very soon. Now, I watched a movie last night, which was a horror movie, which was suggested to me. It's a British horror movie, and it was
Okay.
made a while ago. I won't tell you too much about it. By Christ, it's frightening. It's like American Werewolf in London when they go to the Slaughtered Lamb pub. It's that, but for an hour and a half. So that's great. Yesterday, I will be talking about a bit of Halloween today because the new album's come out, and I love it. But yesterday, I listened to the new Bon Jovi track. I'm not a great fan, and the new Bon Jovi and Bruce Springsteen track. I'm not a great fan, and I didn't like it, folks. And I didn't like either of them, and I will tell you why. Thousands of you have already seen it, but um, I would like you to, to go and have a look at it. What else will I do today? I might go back to a bit of new wave of British heavy metal, because I love it and I lived through it. I'm old enough to have lived through that, so I might do a bit of that.
And I mean, that seems only fitting because Spinal Tap is coming out with a new movie. You know, let's find out if it goes up to 12 this time. That's what I want to know.
Oh, I really hope so. I'm a bit worried because it's my favorite movie, so I'm a bit frightened about it.
I'm always that way. I'm always that way because Spinal Tap is one of those movies, Steve, that I've watched it so many times that I can't watch it when my wife is home anymore. It got to that point.
I can recite whole scenes, and I did that earlier today. So I can do. I was doing the Elvis graveside scene earlier today, the whole bleeding thing. So I'm a bit concerned about that, but
it would be the biggest fun. The biggest fun. Next time you're at like a family function or a get together and they ask you to say grace, just recite a scene from Spinal Tap as if it were the Lord's Prayer that you're given before a meal.
And finish with "Hello, Cleveland."
Perfect. Steve, thank you very much as always. And if there's one thing that you always got to remember, underneath all of that beard oil is one of the greatest chins, and that's because you got to remember to tuck that sumbitch. Peace.